What happens when one of music's most respected legends sits down for what should be a simple interview about her incredible career, only to face a host who seems more interested in stirring up drama than celebrating achievements? It only took 37 seconds of passive-aggressive questioning for everything to completely fall apart, turning what was supposed to be a routine talk show appearance into one of the most uncomfortable moments in daytime television history. Chaka Khan walked into that studio, expecting to talk about her new music, her decades of hits, and maybe share a few stories about her journey. Instead, she found herself sitting across from Tamron Hall, who had apparently decided this was going to be anything but a friendly chat. The tension was there from the very beginning. You could see it in Chaka's eyes as she settled into that guest chair, the way she adjusted her position, like she already sensed something was off. Tamron had this look, this almost smirk that suggested she was about to go somewhere most hosts wouldn't dare. "So Chaka," Tamron began, leaning forward with that fake concerned expression hosts love to use when they're about to ask something completely inappropriate, "I have to ask you about the rumors that have been circulating lately." Chaka raised an eyebrow. This wasn't how these interviews usually started. Most hosts would begin with something easy, something comfortable. Maybe ask about her latest album, or reminisce about her classic hits. But not Tamron. She was going straight for whatever gossip she thought would get her show some buzz. "What rumors are you talking about?" Chaka asked, her voice already carrying a hint of wariness. Tamron smiled that television smile, the one that looks warm but feels cold. "Well, there have been some reports about your personal life, some things people are saying about your relationships, your family situation." The camera caught Chaka's reaction perfectly. Her face tightened just slightly, the kind of expression that anyone who knew anything about interviewing should recognize as a warning sign. This was a woman who had been in the entertainment business for decades. She knew when someone was trying to ambush her. "I'm here to talk about my music," Chaka said firmly but politely. "That's what we discussed beforehand." But Tamron wasn't backing down. If anything, she seemed energized by Chaka's resistance. "I understand that, but our viewers are curious. They want to know the real Chaka Khan, not just the performer." "The real Chaka Khan is what you see on stage and in my music," Chaka replied, her tone still professional but with an edge creeping in. "That's what's real. That's what matters." Tamron leaned back in her chair, and you could practically see her calculating her next move. She had this look like she thought she was being clever, like she was some kind of investigative journalist instead of a daytime talk show host who was supposed to be making her guests feel comfortable. "But don't you think your fans deserve to know more?" Tamron pressed. "I mean, with everything that's been said lately, don't you feel like you owe them some kind of explanation?" That's when you could see Chaka's patience starting to wear thin. Her hands, which had been resting calmly on the arms of her chair, started to tense up. This was a woman who had earned every bit of respect she commanded in the music industry. And here was this host treating her like she was some kind of reality show contestant who owed the world her personal business. "I don't owe anyone an explanation about my private life," Chaka said, her voice getting stronger. "I've given my fans, my music, my performances, my art. That's what they're fans of." Tamron's response was what really started to make things ugly. Instead of respecting that boundary, instead of maybe shifting gears and asking about something more appropriate, she doubled down. "Well, I think that's a little selfish, don't you?" Tamron said, and the words hung in the air like smoke after a gunshot. The studio got very quiet very quickly. You could hear cameras still rolling, but everything else seemed to stop. Chaka Khan, this icon who had been nothing but professional despite increasingly inappropriate questions, just stared at Tamron Hall like she couldn't believe what she had just heard. "Excuse me?" Chaka said, and her voice was deadly calm now. Tamron seemed to realize she had crossed a line, but instead of backing up, she tried to justify it. "I just mean that when you're in the public eye, when people support your career and buy your music, maybe you have some responsibility to be more open with them." Chaka shook her head slowly. "Let me get this straight. You think I'm selfish because I won't discuss my personal life on your show?" "I think fans appreciate honesty," Tamron replied. But you could tell she was starting to feel the weight of what she had started. "Honesty?" Chaka repeated, and now there was real fire in her voice. "You want to talk about honesty? Then let's be honest about what this really is. This isn't about my fans wanting to know more about me. This is about you wanting ratings." The accusation hit Tamron like a slap. Her professional smile faltered for just a moment, and in that moment, everyone watching could see exactly what kind of person they were dealing with. This was someone who was willing to disrespect a legend just to try to create a viral moment. "That's not fair," Tamron said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Fair?" Chaka laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You want to talk about fair? I've been performing for over 50 years. I've given everything I have to my music, to my fans, and you sit there and call me selfish because I won't let you turn my private life into entertainment for your show? Tamron tried to regain control of the situation, but it was already too late. Chaka, I think you're misunderstanding what I'm trying to— No, Chaka interrupted, and her voice cut through Tamron's words like a knife through butter. I understand perfectly. You brought me here under false pretenses. You told my people this would be about my career, about my music. Instead, you're sitting here trying to turn this into some kind of tabloid ambush. The camera caught every second of Tamron's discomfort as she realized her plan was backfiring spectacularly. This wasn't some nervous young starlet she could intimidate. This was Chaka Khan, a woman who had been standing up for herself long before Tamron Hall ever had a television show. I just think our audience deserves, Tamron started to say, but Chaka wasn't having any of it. Your audience deserves better than this, Chaka shot back. They deserve a host who respects her guests, who asks real questions about real accomplishments instead of fishing for gossip like some two-bit tabloid reporter. That comparison hit Tamron where it hurt. You could see it in her face, the way her eyes flashed with anger. She had worked hard to build her reputation as a serious television personality, and here was Chaka Khan reducing her to the level of a gossip columnist right there on her own show. Now wait just a minute, Tamron said, her professional mask finally starting to slip completely. Now wait just a minute, Tamron said, her professional mask finally starting to slip completely. The fake smile was gone now, replaced by something much uglier. I've been doing this for years. I know how to conduct an interview. Chaka looked at her with complete disbelief. This is what you call conducting an interview? Ambushing your guests with personal questions they never agreed to discuss? I'm asking the questions our viewers want answers to, Tamron insisted, but her voice was getting sharper now, more defensive. The pretense of being the caring, concerned host was crumbling right before everyone's eyes. Your viewers? Chaka repeated. Or your producers who told you to create drama because your ratings aren't where you want them to be. That hit home. You could see Tamron's jaw tighten. Her hands gripped the arms of her chair a little harder. She wasn't used to guests who could see right through her tactics, who weren't intimidated by the cameras and the studio lights. My show is very successful. Thank you very much, Tamron snapped. And there it was. The real Tamron Hall. Not the polished television personality, but the person underneath who couldn't handle being called out. Is it? Chaka asked with a raised eyebrow. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're pretty desperate for content. Otherwise, why would you lie to get me here? Tamron's face was getting red now. She was losing control of her own show, being outmaneuvered by a guest who refused to play along with her games. I didn't lie to anyone. We said we wanted to talk to you about your life and career. My career? Yes, Chaka agreed. But you've spent the entire time trying to dig into my personal business instead of asking me about my music, my performances, my artistic journey. You know, the things that actually matter. Everything matters when you're a public figure. Tamron shot back, and her tone was getting nastier by the second. You can't just pick and choose what parts of your life people get to know about. Chaka stared at her for a long moment, and you could practically see her making a decision. Actually, yes, I can. That's exactly what I can do. I'm a human being, not your entertainment. You're a celebrity, Tamron corrected her, like that somehow changed everything. There are expectations that come with that. Expectations? Chaka's voice was rising now, and you could feel the energy in the studio shifting. This wasn't just an uncomfortable interview anymore. This was about to become something much bigger. The only expectation should be that I give my best when I perform, that I respect my fans by putting everything I have into my music. Not that I sit here and let some talk show host treat me like a piece of gossip. Tamron was fully off script now, no longer even pretending to be professional. Some talk show host? Do you know who I am? Do you know what I've accomplished in this business? Right now, all I know is that you're someone who invited me here under false pretenses and then had the nerve to call me selfish for not playing along with your tabloid nonsense. Chaka fired back. The tension in that studio was so thick, you could cut it with a knife. The crew behind the cameras had gone completely silent, probably wondering if they should keep rolling or cut to commercial, but neither woman was backing down now. You know what? Tamron said, and her voice had this edge to it that made everyone in the room uncomfortable. Maybe the problem isn't my questions. Maybe the problem is that you can't handle being asked real questions anymore. Maybe you've been surrounded by yes people for so long that you forgot what it's like to have someone actually challenge you. The insult hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Here was Tamron Hall, suggesting that Chaka Khan, one of the most respected voices in music history, was some kind of diva who couldn't handle tough questions. It was so far beyond inappropriate that even the camera operators seemed shocked. Chaka went very still. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but deadly. Challenge me? You think this is challenging me? You think gossiping about my personal life is some kind of journalistic challenge? I think asking real questions about real issues is what journalism is supposed to be about, Tamron replied, but she was digging herself deeper with every word. Real issues? Chaka stood up from her chair, and suddenly the whole dynamic of the interview changed. She wasn't just a guest anymore. She was a force of nature who had had enough. You want to talk about real issues? Let's talk about how you abuse the trust of your guests. Let's talk about how you use your platform to embarrass people instead of celebrating their accomplishments. Tamron looked genuinely surprised that Chaka had stood up. Maybe she thought she could keep pushing and pushing without any real consequences. Sit down, Chaka. Let's finish this conversation like adults. Like adults? Chaka's voice was full of incredulous anger now. Adults don't lie to get people to come on their shows. Adults don't call their guests selfish for having boundaries. Adults show respect for people who have earned it. I've shown you plenty of respect, Tamron insisted, but even she didn't sound convinced by her own words anymore. Really? When exactly did you show me respect? When you ignored everything we agreed to talk about? When you called me selfish? When you suggested I can't handle real questions? Chaka's voice was getting stronger with each word. This isn't respect, Tamron. This is you trying to use me to create a moment for your show. Tamron was starting to look panicked now. This was not how this was supposed to go. In her mind, she probably thought she would ask a few probing questions. Chaka would get a little flustered, maybe give her something juicy to work with, and then they'd wrap up with a nice musical performance. Instead, she had a legend standing in front of her, calling her out for her unprofessional behavior on live television. You're being dramatic, Tamron said. And it was possibly the worst thing she could have said in that moment. Chaka looked at her like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Dramatic? I'm being dramatic because I won't let you disrespect me on your show? Nobody's disrespecting anyone, Tamron tried to backtrack, but it was way too late for that. Then what do you call this? Chaka gestured around the studio. What do you call bringing someone here under false pretenses, ignoring their boundaries, calling them selfish, and then telling them they're being dramatic when they stand up for themselves? Tamron opened her mouth to respond, but Chaka wasn't finished. I've been in this business for over 50 years, Chaka continued, her voice filled with the kind of authority that comes from decades of experience and success. I've worked with everyone from Stevie Wonder to Prince. I've performed on stages all over the world. I've earned my respect, and I'm not going to sit here and let someone who's been hosting talk shows for a few years tell me that I owe her my personal business. The comparison was devastating. Here was Chaka Khan, with a career that spanned generations, being lectured by someone whose biggest claim to fame was hosting daytime television. Tamron's face was getting redder by the second. This is my show, Tamron said, her voice tight with anger and embarrassment. And that's supposed to mean something to me? Chaka asked. Having a show doesn't give you the right to treat people however you want. Having a platform comes with responsibility, and you're failing at that responsibility right now. Tamron was completely out of her depth now. She had started this thinking she could control the narrative, manipulate the situation to her advantage. Instead, she was getting a masterclass in dignity and self-respect from someone who actually understood what those words meant. Tamron was completely out of her depth now. She had started this thinking she could control the narrative, manipulate the situation to her advantage. Instead, she was getting a masterclass in dignity and self-respect from someone who actually understood what those words meant. You know what your problem is? Tamron said, her voice shaking with frustration and anger. You think being famous for a long time means you get to dictate how interviews work. You think you're above answering questions that might make you uncomfortable. Chaka looked at her with something that might have been pity. No, Tamron. I think being a decent human being means treating your guests with basic respect, something you clearly never learned. Don't lecture me about respect, Tamron snapped. I've earned my place in this business just like you did. Have you? Chaka asked, and the question cut deep. Because right now, it looks like you earned your place by being willing to do things that real journalists wouldn't do, by ambushing people and calling it an interview. Tamron's face twisted with rage. She was losing this battle on every level, and everyone in that studio could see it. You don't know anything about what I've had to do to get here. You don't know what it's like to build a career in this business when you're not some established legend that everyone bows down to. So that gives you the right to tear other people down? Chaka shot back. That gives you the right to lie to guests and then attack them when they don't play along with your games? I'm not attacking anyone, Tamron insisted, but her voice was getting higher and more defensive with every word. Really? Then what do you call telling me I'm selfish? What do you call suggesting that I can't handle real questions? What do you call ignoring everything we agreed to discuss so you could fish for gossip? Chaka's voice was steady and strong, every word hitting its target perfectly. Tamron looked around the studio like she was hoping someone would come to her rescue, but everyone was just watching this disaster unfold. This is ridiculous. You're making this into something it's not. I'm making this into exactly what it is, Chaka replied. This is you showing your true colors. This is you proving that you care more about creating drama than respecting the people who come on your show. Drama? Tamron's voice cracked slightly. You want to talk about drama? You're the one standing up and making a scene, instead of just answering some simple questions. Chaka shook her head slowly. Simple questions? There was nothing simple about what you were doing. You were trying to embarrass me, to get me to say something you could use for headlines. That's not journalism, Tamron. That's exploitation. The word hit Tamron like a physical blow. Exploitation? How dare you accuse me of? How dare I? Chaka interrupted, her voice rising to match the power she brought to her performances. How dare you bring me here under false pretenses and then get angry when I won't let you use me for your ratings? Tamron stood up too now, but where Chaka's standing had been a display of strength and dignity, Tamron's felt desperate and defensive. Nobody used anybody. This is how interviews work. You ask questions, guests answer them. That's the format. That's a format built on honesty and mutual respect, Chaka corrected her. Something you clearly don't understand. You lied to get me here, you attacked me when I wouldn't play your games, and now you're trying to make me the villain because I won't let you get away with it. I didn't lie about anything, Tamron protested, but her voice lacked any conviction. You told my team this would be about my career and my music, Chaka said, her words precise and cutting. Instead, you spent the entire time trying to dig into my personal life. If that's not lying, what is it? Tamron opened her mouth, but no words came out. She had been caught, and she knew it. Everyone in that room knew it. You know what the saddest part about all of this is? Chaka continued, her voice softening slightly but losing none of its power. I actually came here excited to talk to you. I thought this might be a real conversation about music, about art, about the things that matter. Instead, I got ambushed by someone who thinks success means tearing other people down. That's not what I think, Tamron said weakly. Then why are we here having this conversation? Chaka asked. Why did you call me selfish? Why did you suggest I can't handle tough questions? Why did you ignore everything we agreed to discuss? Tamron looked like she was scrambling for an answer that would make her look better, but there wasn't one. She had shown exactly who she was, and there was no taking it back. I was just trying to give our viewers what they want, Tamron said finally, and even she seemed to know how pathetic it sounded. What they want? Chaka's eyebrows shot up. Your viewers want to see you disrespect your guests? They want to watch you lie and manipulate people for entertainment? They want to know the real person behind the music. Tamron tried one more time. The real person behind the music is someone who deserves to have her boundaries respected, Chaka replied firmly. The real person is someone who has given everything to her art and doesn't owe you or anyone else access to her private life. Tamron was running out of arguments, running out of ways to justify what she had done. Fine, maybe we got off on the wrong foot. Why don't we start over? We can talk about your music. Chaka looked at her with complete incredulity. Start over? After everything you just said? After calling me selfish and suggesting I can't handle real questions? You think you can just reset and pretend this didn't happen? I think we both got a little heated, Tamron said, trying to sound reasonable, but it was far too late for that approach. No, Tamron, you got exposed, Chaka corrected her. You showed everyone exactly what kind of person you really are, and now you want to pretend it didn't happen because you realize how bad you look. I don't look bad, Tamron said defensively. Really? You think calling a guest selfish makes you look good? You think lying to get someone on your show makes you look professional? You think attacking someone for having boundaries makes you look like a serious journalist? Chaka's voice was filled with disbelief. Tamron's face was bright red now. Whether from anger or embarrassment, it was hard to tell. You're twisting everything I said. I'm not twisting anything. Everyone heard what you said. Everyone saw how you acted. Chaka gestured toward the cameras that were still rolling, capturing every moment of this disaster. This is all on tape, Tamron. You can't spin this. There's nothing to spin, Tamron said desperately. I was doing my job. Your job is to make your guests feel comfortable and ask them thoughtful questions about their work, Chaka shot back. Your job is not to ambush people and then attack them when they don't give you what you want. Tamron looked around the studio again, like she was hoping this was all some kind of bad dream she could wake up from. But it wasn't a dream. This was really happening, and it was all being recorded for posterity. This interview is over, Chaka announced, her voice carrying the kind of finality that left no room for argument. Wait, you can't just leave, Tamron said, panic creeping into her voice. We're not finished. Oh, we're definitely finished, Chaka replied, already reaching for her purse. I don't waste my time with people who don't know how to treat others with basic human decency. Chaka, please. Tamron tried one last desperate attempt. Let's just sit down and… No! The word came out like a thunderclap. I'm done. I'm done with your questions. I'm done with your disrespect. And I'm done with this pathetic excuse for an interview. Tamron watched helplessly as Chaka Khan, one of the greatest voices in music history, gathered her things and prepared to walk out of her studio. This was not how this was supposed to end. This was supposed to be a routine interview that might generate a little buzz. Instead, it had become a complete humiliation. This is very unprofessional, Tamron called out, making one final attempt to regain some control. Chaka stopped and turned back to look at her, and when she spoke, her voice was calm and measured and absolutely devastating. You want to talk about unprofessional? Take a long look in the mirror, Tamron, because what happened here today, that's all on you. And with that, Chaka Khan walked out of that studio with her head held high and her dignity intact, leaving behind a host who had just learned the hard way that some people cannot and will not be disrespected, no matter how big the platform or how bright the lights.